It all started on an ordinary Monday morning, but what happened next felt like something straight out of a nightmare. I walked out of my house, coffee in hand, ready to start my day, only to find something that made my blood run cold. There it was, my garage completely blocked, and not by some innocent delivery truck or a neighbor's car. No, it was Karen, the HOA's self-proclaimed enforcer, standing there with the audacity of someone who thought she owned the neighborhood. And worse, behind her luxury SUV, parked in a way that made leaving my own home impossible. I froze. I couldn't believe my eyes. 2 months of trapped cars, frustration, and missed plans, all because of a so-called HOA violation that I had never even heard of. At first, I thought it was a simple mistake. Maybe she didn't realize. I had followed every rule to the letter, but a quick glance at her face told a different story. There was no confusion, no oversight, just that smug, triumphant grin that screams, "I'm in charge here, and you will obey." Now, I'm not the kind of person who loses my cool easily, but I could feel the tension rising. I knew that if I reacted rashly, if I honked, shouted, or tried to move her SUV, it could escalate the situation into something far worse. So instead, I did what any person trying to play by the rules would do. I stayed calm, documented everything, and made a mental note of every detail. Every inch of obstruction, every word exchanged, every photo and video captured for evidence. I reached for my phone, thinking maybe a simple HOA complaint could resolve this. But my gut told me this was different. Karen didn't operate like a normal HOA member. She thrived on conflict, on asserting control, on bending rules to suit her own twisted sense of justice. And this was personal. Somehow she had decided my garage and my life were hers to disrupt. So I did something most people wouldn't. I didn't yell. I didn't panic. And I certainly didn't let her win. I studied the HOA rules, the bylaws, every fine print clause, until I had an airtight plan. Every move I made from here on out would be strategic. Every response calculated. Because one thing was clear. Karen thought she was untouchable. But she had no idea I wasn't going to play by her game. I was going to rewrite the rules. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about a blocked garage. This was about proving a point. About showing that no amount of entitlement, arrogance, or a luxury SUV could overshadow the law when someone is willing to fight smart. Not just loud. After that shocking morning, I retreated inside, heart still pounding, but mind already racing. I knew I couldn't let this slide. Karen had crossed a line, and I needed a strategy. But I also knew this had to be done smartly. Any wrong move could turn the entire neighborhood against me. Or worse, make her think she had won. And trust me, that was not going to happen. I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open. HOA documents scattered across the counter like battle plans. Every rule, every regulation, every fine print clause became my ammunition. I meticulously cross-referenced the HOA's guidelines with the incident in my driveway. One by one, I discovered inconsistencies, loopholes she thought she could exploit, minor technicalities she had ignored, and a glaring fact. I had followed the rules perfectly. This wasn't just a small victory waiting to happen. It was a slam dunk waiting to be served. I started documenting everything. Photos of her SUV blocking my driveway at different times of the day, timestamps on my phone, videos of her confrontational behavior, and notes from neighbors who had witnessed the chaos. It was obsessive, yes, but necessary. I realized early on that in any battle against someone like Karen, evidence is more powerful than anger. Next, I reached out to the HOA board, carefully framing my complaint. I wasn't emotional. I wasn't dramatic. I simply laid out the facts, citing the specific rules and clauses that Karen had violated. I attached every piece of evidence I had gathered, making it impossible to ignore or dismiss. Every email, every call, every message had to be precise because in situations like this, a small mistake could give Karen leverage. But even as I worked on the official front, I had another plan brewing. I knew Karen's ego. I knew her obsession with appearances, and I knew she would never anticipate a counter-strategy that played by the rules yet struck at her pride. I started thinking of ways to turn her own obsession with her luxury SUV into her downfall. Not recklessly, not maliciously, but in a way that would expose her disregard for the rules while highlighting my own compliance. By the end of that day, I had a full dossier ready, evidence cataloged, emails sent, and a mental map of exactly how I would proceed if she refused to move her SUV, and deep down, a sense of anticipation started to build. This wasn't just about reclaiming my driveway anymore. This was about proving a point. That entitlement, no matter how polished and expensive, could be challenged when someone was willing to fight smart. And as I closed my laptop, I could already picture her reaction when the first official notice arrived. Karen's smug grin wouldn't last much longer. If I played my cards right, it would be the beginning of her unraveling. The following days felt like walking through a minefield. Every glance toward the driveway made my stomach tighten. Every sound of a car engine made me hold my breath. Karen hadn't moved her SUV yet, but the first ripple of change was starting. Emails from the HOA began trickling in, each one carefully worded, each one referencing the rules she had ignored. I could sense the shift. The tide was turning, and for the first time, I realized Karen's confidence might have cracks. I continued documenting everything, because even though the official channels were working in my favor, I knew she would fight back. She thrived on manipulation, on making herself the victim, twisting facts to suit her narrative. I had to stay 2 steps ahead. Every phone call she made, every note she left on my door, I logged. Every interaction became a chess piece, part of a larger strategy. Then came the confrontation. I had barely stepped outside when she stormed over, her voice sharp, her face flushed with indignation. "You're making this personal!" she shouted, waving her hands dramatically. Her SUV gleamed behind her, a symbol of her power, or so she thought. I stayed calm, meeting her anger with measured words. "I'm not making it personal. I'm following the rules, just like everyone else has to." Her expression flickered just for a second, a moment of hesitation. That was all I needed to see. Karen wasn't used to people standing their ground while staying composed. She expected fear, or at least panic. Instead, she got clarity. And clarity is dangerous when someone thrives on chaos. The HOA sent a formal notice next. Karen was officially warned, her violation documented, and the looming threat of fines now hung over her head. I could feel the tension in the neighborhood shifting. Neighbors who had avoided getting involved started quietly nodding at me in acknowledgement, their eyes silently cheering for justice. And Karen? Her aura of untouchable authority was starting to crack. I began to realize that this wasn't just about a blocked driveway anymore. It was about accountability, about showing that no amount of entitlement, luxury, or manipulation could override rules that existed for everyone's benefit. Karen had underestimated the power of patience, documentation, and following procedures, and in that underestimation lay her undoing. By the end of the week, the pressure was palpable. Every day, her SUV remained parked there, a monument to her arrogance, but also a ticking clock counting down to the moment she would face consequences. And I had every intention of seeing that moment unfold. Because when someone tries to bend the rules for their own benefit, it's not just about reclaiming space. It's about reclaiming respect and fairness for everyone. The morning of the final showdown arrived like the calm before a storm. I woke up with a mixture of anticipation and satisfaction. Months of careful planning, meticulous documentation, and strategic patience were about to pay off. Karen's luxury SUV still sat in my driveway, gleaming arrogantly in the sunlight. But I knew it wouldn't be there for long. The HOA had sent final notices, fines were imminent, and her usual confidence was beginning to crack. As I stepped outside, I noticed subtle changes in the neighborhood. Neighbors peeked from their windows, curious eyes tracking the situation. Some offered quiet words of encouragement. It was strange, but empowering, to feel this sense of silent support. Karen, on the other hand, was pacing, visibly agitated. The smugness that had dominated her expressions for months was gone, replaced with a nervous energy that betrayed her uncertainty. Then it happened. A team from the HOA arrived, armed with the authority and documentation that had been so meticulously prepared. They approached Karen calmly, citing the violations, referencing the fines, and explaining that her obstruction could no longer continue. For the first time, she couldn't twist the rules in her favor. Her arguments fell flat, her threats ignored, her SUV marked for immediate towing if she refused to comply. Karen's face turned a mixture of disbelief and fury. The luxury SUV, her symbol of dominance, had become the centerpiece of her downfall. She realized that all her attempts to control the situation, to intimidate and to manipulate the neighborhood had failed. Every rule she had ignored, every confrontation she had initiated, every smug comment, none of it mattered in the face of documented evidence and steadfast adherence to the rules. As the HOA personnel gently instructed her to move the vehicle, Karen hesitated, then finally drove away, leaving her SUV parked temporarily for inspection. The feeling that washed over me was indescribable: relief, vindication, and a deep sense of justice. 2 months of obstruction, frustration, and harassment had finally ended, not through confrontation or chaos, but through patience, strategy, and unwavering adherence to the rules. I took a deep breath and looked around. The neighborhood was quiet, but I could feel a shift in the air. Karen's reign of entitlement had ended, replaced by a restored sense of fairness and accountability. It was more than just my driveway. It was a message that no amount of arrogance, or wealth could override the rules, when someone was willing to stand their ground. In the end, Karen learned a hard lesson. Entitlement crumbles under persistence, evidence, and patience. My garage was finally free, and her SUV, once a symbol of dominance, became a reminder that no one is above the rules. And for anyone watching this story, the takeaway is simple: stay smart, document everything, and never let arrogance push you out of your own space. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more epic HOA Karen encounters, make sure to hit subscribe, smash that like button, and leave a comment telling us what you would do in this situation. Don't miss out. More crazy stories coming every week.